Seeing none? Oh, yes, okay. Seeing none, our revisor is trying to finish up frantically to get up here, and she will be giving us a quick brief on the bill. We will be working Senate Bill 63 today, and so we will stand at ease until she arrives. Jenna, we're going to have you take 2 deep breaths, and then you can go up and give us a quick bill brief before we work the bill. Let me just ask, committee, do we need a bill brief before we work this bill? I'm seeing no head nods, so we will dispense with the bill brief, Jenna, and we will go straight to the bill. Committee, do we have any discussion on the bill this morning before we vote? Or any amendments? Yes, Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have an amendment.
And Jenna will pass that out. Senator Erickson, would you like to explain the bill, or would you like Jenna to do so?
I will let Jenna explain
The amendment.
the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Huh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's 2 amendments. I'll explain the easiest one first, which is amending the effective date of the bill to be the register, which is on page 8, the last line of the bill. And the other change is on page 4, and it slightly amends the damages provisions. So in subsection B, which is the strict liability cause of action, the specific types of damages that a plaintiff was able to recover were not listed before. And so this lists one so that they will mirror the available damages to be recovered in the actions in C and D, which would be actual and punitive damages, injunctive relief, cost of suit, and attorney's fees. In subsection C, there was a provision that would allow a prevailing party to recover the cost of the suit and attorney's fees, and that has been changed to just allow the plaintiff, if they win, to recover the actual and punitive damages, injunctive relief, cost of the suit, and attorney's fees. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Jenna. Are there any questions for Jenna or for the carrier of the amendment? Yes, Senator Holscher.
Thank you. Jenna, can you give me like practical implications of the change compared to how the bill is in its original form?
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair. In subsection C, the way the bill was written, if a child, or excuse me, the parent had sued a physician and the physician had won, the physician would have been able to recover the cost of the suit and attorney's fees. And realistically, there wouldn't be cost of the suit because the plaintiffs would have filed, so they could have recovered their attorney's fees. But this, the way that it's written now, only the plaintiff could recover the cost of the suit and attorney's fees.
Additional questions? Do I hear a motion on the bill? Or do you want to move your bill, your amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move my amendment.
Do we have a second? We have a second from Senator Thomas. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And now, do we have any other amendments? That amendment was passed. Senator Petty.
Madam Chair, Jenna, it would be, actually, Jenna, it's not, you, yeah, is it not, so it would, yeah. Yeah, it would be in the enacting clause. Who that concerns at the very beginning. Madam Chair, I think everybody has a copy of the amendment now.
Yes. Thank you, Senator Petty. You may proceed.
So if you take a look at the amendment that you've received, this is in line 28. In addition, we, it appears, as it always has, that the purpose of this legislation is to deal specifically with surgical and medical transformation of a minor, whereas we know that we have many young people that are unfortunately suffering with mental issues, and that this starts very young. And this addition or this amendment would authorize this is not include an individual who's licensed by the Behavioral Science for Regulatory Board. I know that we want to protect the mental health of our young people, and this would help to do that without putting all of those providers at jeopardy. Excuse me? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the other change that this made would be on, well, I added a 1 on page 2, but then on page 3, it sets out the different categories of medications that would not be prohibited from being administered under this bill. And so what I did is I found the most common categories of mental health drugs, which were antipsychotics, antidepressants, anxiety medications, mood stabilizers, and stimulants. So this clarifies that these mental health medications would not be prohibited from being prescribed under the provisions of the bill.
Senator Petty, are you ready for questions? Will you stand for questions?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the carrier of the amendment? Yes, Senator Thomas.
Yeah, this says House Bill 2071 on it, on the amendment that I have. Is that right?
Okay, thank you. We did a lot of work, and because the bills are mirrors of each other, I printed off that page, because it copied the work that I did, but the text is exactly the same, so it'll just have a different number on that second page.
My apologies, and I am not ever questioning your work. I know better. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Additional questions for the carry of the amendment? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Erickson and then Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is for either the senator, or the reviser. So on page 3, where it says, shall not prohibit the prescribing, dispensing, or administration of medications used to treat mental illness, including, and then it lists those, as you said. However, I would posit that gender dysphoria is a mental illness. Does it exclude prescribing hormone therapy to treat mental illness in this section?
Yes, that would be in 2 and 3. Those are specifically excluded.
Even in the case of mental illness under this verbiage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if you read the lead-in language to 3, it says that the healthcare physician shall not knowingly prescribe, dispense, or administer the following medications for the purpose of treatment for distress arising from the gender dysphoria, and then it gives the examples, and then this is saying, 2, it shall not prohibit the medications to treat the mental illness, and then it lists out the specific classes of drugs. And because the hormone therapy is not a class of drug that's listed in here, I mean, the intent was that it would only be the classes of drugs listed. If you believe that it doesn't do that, we could talk about changing language.
Madam Chair, quick follow-up, if I may. I believe that this was an issue last year with this bill, and I believe that that was corrected. Is there anything that in the bill outside of this amendment that would prohibit mental health treatment, including the prescription of those drugs, without this amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the way that the bill is written, the types of medications that are banned are specifically laid out in, so that would be section 3A and B, 2 and 3, which would be the hormone therapy and the puberty blockers. So there is no explicit banning of other mental health medications in the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Thompson.
That was exactly my concern. Why are we doing this when we're actually saying in the bill what we are banning, and doesn't address these other issues at all? And so I will oppose this amendment because I think it's unnecessary and potentially could be interpreted incorrectly by a court at a later time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have additional questions? Senator Owens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Probably for the reviser, can you tell me who is licensed by the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board regulates, I believe it's 7 classes of mental health professionals, including psychologists, professional counselors, social workers, marriage and family therapists, behavioral health analysts, addiction counselors, and then I believe there's also another classification of like clinical counselors. And I hope that's right. If Dave Fye here, he'd be able to correct me, but it's the mental health professions.
Fantastic. That's incredible recollection, Jenna. I'll give you that. So here's my question as it relates to this. Would those classifications of individuals, because they are now exempted from being a healthcare provider as far as the statute, be exempted from the remainder of the requirements of this bill if that portion was added?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, yes. They would not be subject to the professional discipline provisions in Section 3.
So a psychologist then licensed by the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board could still treat and counsel individuals with gender dysphoria and treat them accordingly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, are you saying if this amendment were to pass?
Correct.
Yes, they would be able still to treat. And I will note that Although some mental health professionals do have the ability to prescribe medications, it would not be within the scope of their practice to prescribe hormone therapy.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for that clarification. So that clarifies for me, because those are part of the people that we want to regulate as part of this legislation. So I stand in opposition. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Senator Hulscher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, and just to provide a little clarification, when reviewed by attorneys, there is some concern that the language in this bill makes a prohibition. So this is just to clarify that mental health is allowed. And then that's all it does. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Yes, Senator Thomas.
To piggyback on that, though, mental health, I mean, you're talking about health providers, and in the term mental health is the word health. So I feel like we're muddying the water, and this might cause issues for statutory definitions of healthcare providers later on down the road when we talk about mental health. So I'll be opposing this as well.
Additional questions? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, in testimony yesterday, a lot of the problems stemmed from this group. It kind of got it down the path, and so for that reason, I'm opposed as well.
Any additional questions? All right, seeing none, Senator Petty, are you ready to move your amendment?
I would just add that as I'm hearing the comments concerning the amendment, and particularly in line 28 on the first page where it does not include individuals who are licensed by the behavioral sciences, yes, I would agree that we did hear that mental health is very much impacted by what the young person is feeling. And this just clarifies that those mental health providers are not going to be disciplined under this bill. The gist of the bill speaks specifically with a type of treatment that is outside the scope of mental health providers. And as the amendment speaks to, it speaks specifically to the group of licensed professionals, as well as the medications that they would be able to prescribe or to recommend. And but it does not, this amendment would not impact any way where someone might be concerned about the surgical part, because the mental health providers do not have that ability to do within their scope of practice. So if we're really concerned about the young people's mental health, then this clarifies that those mental health providers are not included within this legislation. So I move my amendment.
Do we have a second? Senator Hulscher. All of those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? No. The amendment does not pass. Do we have another amendment? Senator Hulscher, would you like Jenna to distribute? Okay, Senator Hulscher, would you please explain it, or would you like for Jenna to do so?
Stalling because Jenna's typing. So, okay. Jenna, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator. So this amendment would strike beginning in the title, restricting the use of state funds to promote gender transitioning. And then it strikes the reference, the definition of social transitioning on page 2, lines 3 through 6. And then it also strikes subsections D, E, and F related to the use of state buildings, related to the use of social transitioning, medication or surgery, the state facility, building or property being used to administer medication or perform surgery as prohibited in Section 3, and then also the provision regarding state employees being banned from promoting the use of social transitioning or the medication or surgery as prohibited by Section 3.
Senator Holscher.
And so to expound upon that, in reviewing the original bill with attorneys, there's concerns about constitutionality of the bill itself. And the desire here is to make sure that if we are focusing on medical care, that that is what the bill is focusing on, because there's language in here that talks about promoting, and yet promoting isn't defined, so that causes some muddying of the issues. So this amendment, again, is to make it a clean medical bill, focusing on healthcare.
Committee, do we have any questions for the carrier of the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready to move your amendment? Okay. Do we have a second? Senator Petty. All those in favor of this amendment, please say aye. Opposed? No. This amendment does not pass. Do we have another amendment? Senator Holscher. Senator Holscher, would you like to explain your amendment?
Sure, thank you. This is in regard to the severability clause because, again, kind of another protection for the state as the previous amendment. If we're supporting this bill, then we have to believe no one's going to be hurt as a result of it. And then we have to believe that we're not putting the state in jeopardy in terms of pending litigation in case it's found unconstitutional. So through this amendment, we're removing the severability clause to ensure that.
Jenna, would you like to explain severability clause?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So generally speaking, a severability clause is an instruction to the court that if one particular portion of a bill is found to be unconstitutional, that the other provisions of the bill should still be upheld and enforced. Sometimes courts follow the instructions, sometimes they don't, depending on how inherently, necessarily, there's a specific term of art that I can't remember right now, but essentially, if the court determines that the provisions of the bill are so intertwined that they cannot be disconnected, they may or may not follow the severability clause. But generally speaking, it means if one part of the bill is found unconstitutional, keep the rest.
Thank you, Jenna. Committee, are there questions for the carrier of the amendment? Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, I'd just like to comment that, severability at least signals to the court the legislative intent. So even though we can't control the courts, I think they sometimes lean into legislative intent. So I would not be voting in favor of this.
Other questions for the carrier of the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready to move your amendment, Senator Holscher? Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Petty. All in favor say aye. Opposed? No. The amendment does not pass. Do we have other amendments this morning? All right, we are back on the bill. Do I hear a motion regarding the bill? Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we pass Senate Bill 63 out of committee favorably, as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Senator Clifford. All those in favor of passing Senate Bill 63 out of committee as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bill has passed out of committee. Committee, this is all of the work that we had for us today. So we have completed working this bill, Senate Bill 63, and we are adjourned.